Okay, so good afternoon. My name is Johnny Douvinet, and I'm professor in geography at the University of Avignon in south of France, so not so far from here. So I'm a geographer, and we are working since a few years on the alerting process, especially on time and space interactions and on the relations between technologies and human needs. So thanks to Benoît Vivier, Jérôme Paris, and EENA to invite me to be the chairman of this session entitled Public Warning, Moving Beyond the Technology Mandate. So first of all, let me introduce this session, and I just want to present a few results obtained at 3 different levels. So first of all, at the European scale, many of you know that the EECC mandates that by June 2022, every EU member state must implement an electronic communication systems with PWCS, that can reach mobile phone users affected by major emergencies and disasters. By projecting the application of this directive, and we know that we have uncertainties, we can plan that 9 countries will be equipped with cell broadcast. So you have a name of the different countries: Austria, Denmark, Greece, Italy, Latvia, Lithuania, Netherlands, Romania, and Spain. 10 countries will be equipped with located-based SMS. You have the name of the countries. And we can also observe that 2 countries will be equipped with mobile application already in place: Finland and Slovenia. Interestingly, choice validated by other countries show that there's not only just one solution. After the floods occurred the last year, Germany decided to combine cell broadcast with mobile application, and 5 countries also decided to combine cell broadcast and located-based SMS: France, Malta, Croatia, Estonia, and recently Luxembourg. So this is really interesting because this choice allowed to deploy multi-channel platform. And the advantage is also to combine the advantages of each solution and to reduce the limits of each technology, and not only to depend on a single. In a second time, I'd like to present you the choice retained in France. The future platform, so-called FR Alert, will allow to alert the population using different technologies. Some of them are previous disseminator channels, like sirens, upgraded since 2012, as the older sirens exist in France since the end of World War II, and currently sirens exist in more than 2,000 cities. Radio and television, especially Radio France, a public radio allocated for alert, exists since 1990s, and there's also current other channels like social networks and websites. In 2022, CB will be deployed in June, and located-based SMS will be deployed in 2023 at the metropolitan scales, but also in overseas territories. Each technology could be used according to the nature of danger, the number of people located in the danger zone, and to the number of antennas to avoid communication congestion, for example. In 2024, the emergency warning system Galileo will be also included. So it's an interesting multi-channel platform combining previous alerting disseminators and future technologies. Actually, the prefects and the French Ministry of the Interior are the authorities that will be able, or that will have access to the platform, but some mayors or other entities will probably have access to it in a short term. Finally, be careful. Never forget to meet the population's needs. The last year, we simulated alert notifications with a large audience, despite the COVID context, in France, and the main result confirms other scientific studies obtained in other countries. On the left of the slide, you can design an ideal message, which is related with a sound, which names the sender, which specifies the location of the event. Here it's an industrial accident. You can also indicate the instructions, the safety guidelines, or you can refer to a link to authenticate the source of the danger. But be careful. This message can never speak to the great majority of the population. On the right here, just two simple results. Students in university found the CB sound intrusive and the voice associated with the message pleasant. So it's a good news. However, in contrast, on the right, employees in an industrial context found the sound and the CB message unpleasant and anxiety-provoking. So finally, an alerting tool, whatever it is, can never be able to answer all these needs. And this is the challenge of any new technology, to know what people think of it, to evaluate what they want to have as content, and to get them used to this kind of messages. Thus, training with and for the population is important, and not only for the authorities. So thank you for your attention. If you have any question, I can answer to you at the end of this session. I respect the time, and for me, there's no question, so I can give the speak voice to the future presentation. Mathieu, if you want. So Mathieu will deal with the public warning systems in Europe with a nice formula, taking the bull by its horns. Thank you.
Thank you, Johnny, for this nice introduction of this very important topic for Europe, public warning system, recent development, and the future. So I'm very pleased to be here. So I'm Mathieu Lafforgue, Product Marketing Manager at Intersec, leader of public warning system in Europe and some other part of the world. I'm so very pleased to talk about this topic today with you. And I propose, to tackle this topic by taking the bull by its horn. So, to start with a nice and pleasant picture of a pet. I'm not sure to want to have this pet in my garden, even if I don't have a garden. So it's nice, it's pleasant. It's a metaphor because it's a dangerous pet, clearly. And Europe can face and will face many dangers, many threats that can be challenging in the country of Europe. And so public warning are a key element to tackle and to face these threats and challenges. I like this picture because it's equivocal. It's also a nice animal, and we can impersonate this animal, and it's like Europe in a sense. The bull is turning his eye, he's looking elsewhere, and at Intersec we think that we should not look away, and we should face the reality of the current situation to prepare the future. So to start, Europe made a huge movement since the last decade and even the 5 last year regarding public warning systems. Many countries were launching this system long ago, some other more recently, and projects are ongoing or even finished or about to terminate comparing to the deadlines of ECC. But how many EU countries will really met the deadline by June? Because it's really soon by now. Less than 50%? Between 50 and 70? More than 70? Not so clear. For sure, everyone is making lots of effort. And I would say it will be between 50 and 70, just my guess. But many will be ready really soon after and in the course of the year. So, as Johnny presented in his introduction, the choice regarding the ECC regulation were quite diverse in Europe, depending on the legacy, the history, the decisions, and even the study phase, cycle, decision and implementation has been really reduced and made sometimes in the rush because country wanted to comply as fast as possible due to the deadline. And so the result in terms of choosing direct communication channel, because ECC regulation was about having public warning system efficient in place with an important reach in terms of population. So as mentioned by Johnny earlier, really few stayed to the choice of what Article 110, famous one, to provide for that the use of mobile application. The level of reach will really face difficulties to reach most of the population by relying just on a mobile application. The BEREC will assess the implementation. So generally, country Europe made the choice of mobile-based number communication service, so alert short messages carried by mobile networks, and with different choices ranging from cell broadcast, location-based SMS, and sometimes the combination of two. But to say it, the reach of population, even with cell broadcast and location-based SMS, may be either incomplete or uneven. And it's an important matter to say so, to be frank. Because cell broadcast alone is not enough. It's an amazing communication channel in certain situations. It's really awesome, really efficient. But it has limits, and these are facts. There is a question of compatibility of cell broadcast systems regarding the mobile handsets. And in Europe, due to the former legacy phone we have, some imperfection in the handset implementation, it's not perfect in terms of reach. And there is some use cases provided by location-based SMS that are not achievable by cell broadcast, like alerting people abroad, retargeting people that were in a zone previously and that are not in the zone now, like for calling for child, missing child information, retargeting people to say them, you can go back home now, it's safe. So cell broadcast is amazing, very efficient, it's really needed, but not enough. LBSMS, it has the utmost compatibility in terms of reach. Every device you have, even the former Nokia, you can have from 20 years ago, work perfectly with SMS. But it doesn't face any situation, especially the really severe degraded one when mobile networks are partially down or really congested. So for the worst cases, sometimes LBSMS are not enough. So it's not an opposition between these two. It has been said a lot in front of this assembly in our event. It's more about combination. They have advantage both, they have limits both. So looking forward, the combination is a solution. And of course, it's possible I can make a parallel with AML. It's possible to improve the AML quality of services by working closely to improve with device manufacturers, MNO, and so on and so forth. For cell broadcast, that's the same, and LBSMS the same. Working closer with phone providers, Google, Apple, and mobile carrier, it's possible to reduce the facts and limitation I've mentioned in this slide. Problem of reach, problem of compatibility, and problem of delivery regarding the SMS in certain the difficult congestion or situation in mobile networks. So today, I'm really pleading for more resilience in public warning system in Europe. in twofold, at two scale. First scale, national level, because it was how it has been carried so far in Europe. National public warning system are responsibility of the state, so each state takes its own responsibility, decision, and it's good for that. So there is a path for reinforcing the public warning system at national level, because I mentioned 2 and 3 with a mobile application channel, but Johnny mentioned that also in the beginning. Typically in FRR system, it's about multi-channel, because more channel you have, more people you can reach, because you have different feeding and use of the different channels. Some people are keen to social media, some other needs to verify the information of on a website. So public warning, it's not just cell broadcast, LB, SMS, mobile app, it's the whole multi-channel, which is something to be looked forward. And why? Because all the channels have their specificities apart from the reach. It's good to have brief and efficient communication channels with short messages, and it's also good to have comprehensive, rich media where to explain the situation in details, give more information where they are available to the population, to confirm to the population what's the situation and what they should do or not do. So combine all kind and regroup all kind of communication channel. Technology provide for unicast technology and multicast technology, and it's an help, clearly, in difficult situation. Unicast is very efficient, I said broadcast, but there is no return pass, there is no feedback, technically speaking, and human speaking. With other technology, you can have bidirectional communication, and so re-engage with people to know if they are safe, if they need something, etc., etc. And I'm talking a lot about communication channel, and actually they are all digitals, so they all need communication infrastructure for that. Mobile one, wide communication infrastructure as well, like internet by fiber at home, but after it's about Wi-Fi and MNOs. So a country deserves to have the proper infrastructure of telecommunication to carry whatever, cell broadcast, website access, social media access, phone call, etc. Plus, and it has been mentioned, some countries still have air-raid siren, so it's about carrying airwave and also soundwave alerts to the population. And taking a bit of zoom out, communication infrastructure like generally on the ground, but Laurent Arzel later on will talk about also the sky, and sky is also a reliable infrastructure to complement public warning system from above. Just an illustration to show that the combination, 2 examples, of important event like a tsunami that will impact in less than 1 hour, and a second one regarding flash flood like we had, unfortunately, in Europe last summer. For the first one, a tsunami, that if it comes really fast in terms of first communication channel to trigger cell broadcast, and Galileo could be really the most proper one to be efficient, and Galileo maybe to complement where mobile carriers are not perfectly covering the territories impacted. Second, it's a scenario. Imagine the MNO are not responsive due to the impact of the wave. What do you have to carry on communication with the population? Galileo. And I put on the below, always use the other channel. Always put reference information on the web, on the social media, on opt-in people who have asked to have information in case if something happened to place they belong to or where they have relatives, for instance. Second one, the flash flood in 24 hours. You have time to warn people. You have time. You have more than 5 minutes to warn. So you can use more advanced channel and like location-based SMS to have statistic of reception of the message, more interaction, capability of retargeting, and making smoother communication through the crisis, and still use and publish on the other communication channel. At European level, Europe is a complex territory, clearly, and ECC was about European Union, but in Europe, and we are friends here, there is not only European Union, there is Ireland in Europe, Ireland, United Kingdom, Iceland. There are some other territories that do not belong to EU as well, and so it's very complex with tiny states, and everyone should be considered. Also, our neighbors and partners in Europe, in the European Economic Area, and elsewhere. And Europe has also outmost regions that has to be considered for the safety of the population there. So, second appeal is to appeal for more cooperation, not only inside the state, but clearly in transboundary places with the other country in Europe and just not in EU. So to sum up what I've presented, some challenges that I think they are not yet met today. The deadline of ECC, the compliance of ECC after June, and that the BEREC and European Commission will assess. The question of reach in the population, we really need to go further to look for more reach in terms of population, whatever the channel are, and build more resilience inside each country of Europe, and not only EU, but think globally in Europe with our neighbors, partners in Europe around the Mediterranean Sea. And to conclude, to go back at the metaphor of the beginning, the bell, the danger is really stronger. Climate change, human-made threats, disaster or incidents, geostrategic risk at Europe, and we see that clearly. So we need to carry on preparing the future in Europe and seeing the situation like it is. It's not a pessimistic view. Europe made so great move since the last 5 years, and we have to see what we have been achieved so far by 2022, June, and to prepare what is coming next. Because we have to move beyond this first technology mandate, and Europe has the skills, the framework, the companies to do so and to succeed in public warning and protecting people, and be also an inspiring place like Europe knows to do, like building a program and initiative like GDPR, Galileo, that go beyond Europe for the world. So I would say, let's move forward together. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mathieu, for this nice presentation. So we have 4 minutes for 1 or 2 questions. So is there any question on the floor?
Anyone?
No question, so I have a question.
Yes, please.
You show that in time of events, like tsunami or flash floods, can influence the type of technology. So do you think the governments need to know the different events that could occur in their country before choosing the solution?
Yes, for sure. Thanks for this question. Very interesting. And yes, it's about preparedness. So for sure, countries have to prepare at least what the risk, territorial risks they could encounter in their country. I would say before choosing to deploy a system, but also after having made a first choice and a first deployment, it's important to reconsider the situation. For instance, the geostrategic risk, they are quite new, or at least the perception and the awareness in Europe has raised a lot since Ukraine invasion. So it's a continuous path of assessing what are the risks before equipping, but really my plea is more channel you have, so cell broadcast, LBSMS, social media, Galileo, the more you prepare to face what you could expect as a risk assessment, but also for the unexpected. And so this is my answer for the preparation. And second, I would say in front of a coming event, like a tsunami you mentioned, like a tsunami, or something that happened at the moment, the national authorities, they have to decide what to trigger. They have plan. Maybe they can stick to the plan if it fits what is really going on to happen, or they have to react. And the fact to have more channel make the possibility to react and react differently, depending of the event, the situation of the infrastructure, the mobile one, the Galileo one, the wide infrastructure, to react more in a more adaptive way.
Thank you for this answer. In addition, with a scientific point of view, we know that previous disasters can influence the creation or the deployment of national systems. United States deploy EPOS due to the Katrina in 2005. So it's one example. We know that floods occur in Europe the last year, but there's other disasters, dramatic disasters, that can influence the choice of a solution. So thank you. If there's no question, we have restrictive time. Sorry. There's a question?
Hello, hello. Here I am.
Sorry.
Hello, my name is Gilbert from Atos Company. A question for you, Johnny. So you show us your study, and especially the way a different type of people in the same country receive the same message. Okay, and typically a student, they didn't receive the same way the message than people who are working. And can you feel that your study can be the same on the other countries, or this study is only for France?
So shortly, because we do not have time, but we simulate alert notifications in France, but we compare our results with other scientific studies carried out in other countries. So it's quite interesting to see that there are similar trends, but differences. So that you can have cultural differences, you can have age or experience in the past do not influence the content of the message. So this is interesting. I have another speech in the next session, so I can answer to this after. So now I welcome Val and Dominic. Val, you will deal with the evolution of public safety towards greater societal resilience. So thank you.
Thank you. So let me just start by saying that my name is Val Risk, and my name is Risk because I married Mr. Risk, not because I was looking to work in public safety, but I'm very happy to be here. And we're here to talk today about moving beyond the technology mandate. And I think it's fair to say that we all now understand that we are in the digital age. And I say that as somebody that started my career before mobile telephony, internet, quantum computing, hyperconnectivity, and all of these things were part of the DNA of the world in which we live and work. The connection, the integration, and the enablement of technology has become a given. And I think Mathieu talked very clearly about the future of technology from a public warning perspective is already here. And as William Gibson, the Canadian author, would say, it's here, it's just not evenly distributed yet. And that is the collective challenge of us in this room. I just want to talk a little bit about telephony. And we've talked about the importance of mobile alerting across Europe. Is there anybody in this room that's brave enough not to have a mobile phone? No. You think about a mobile phone, it's an amazing thing. It's mass-produced. You may have an Apple phone, you may have a Samsung, there may be Huawei phones in the room. It's a mass-produced thing that's completely customized by each of us to meet our own unique needs. And I think the point that was made about don't forget the person, the citizen, and the receiver of the message and all of the design is really important, because we use our phones now not just to receive information in reaction to something, but as a proactive portal into every part of our life, our health, our finances, and our fun. Why does this matter? It matters because societal resilience is no longer optional. We do live in interesting times, and we've seen that many more events are happening than previously did. You can read these facts for yourself, but everything is on the up in terms of critical events, the number, the severity, and the impact on our lives across both Europe and the rest of the world. Some of us in the room may have been lucky enough, and I was, to go to the COP26 climate conference late last year. And we were talking there about the increased threat of climate on people, on assets, and on the economies around the world that depend upon their people and their assets to keep things running. In this room, we have a collective responsibility to try and manage those risks on behalf of the citizens, the companies, the corporates, the continents that we protect. Emergency management's become a key differentiator for that because if you're good at protecting citizens and visitors, companies and assets, you make your community a more attractive place to invest in. And if you're more attractive to invest in, you will eventually be more profitable, you'll thrive, and you'll create that resilient society that attracts people. Public safety obviously helps that. We know that if you deploy, and I think Mathieu talked about that, a very comprehensive multi-channel public safety approach, including early warning systems, so you know what's happening. The standard operating procedures, that's the bread and butter of the people in this room, so that you do something about it. And the ability to communicate clearly and concisely, two-way, at the time that matters. But what else? I think we all know from the use of our mobile phones that whereas we used to react to things, we'd use the phone to make a telephone call, we now expect a very proactive response from our employees, from our families, from our societies, and the mobile phone is the portal to all of that. Talk about, the ability of technology. And we're just talking about the reactive to proactive journey that we've all been on. A few years ago, I actually implemented a project with a large logistics company where we connected the mobile phone to a wearable. We tapped in to the body clock of the driver, and when we could sense that that driver was getting fatigued or losing concentration, we could actually alert that driver to the situation with a small buzz or vibration, not an electric shock, I promise, it was just a vibration. If the driver didn't listen to that, we were able to then alert their manager to say, this is becoming a dangerous situation. We were proactively getting ahead of the curve. And I think that's becoming the new normal for all of us. Let me talk about the risk landscape, and I'm definitely copywriting that. Operational risk, you talk about your day-to-day operations, standard ops, things that we all do instinctively because we've practiced it 1,000 times and all the systems and things are in place. We then have major risks, and I think someone was talking about leadership through major events this morning, where collaboration and coordination across multiple agencies becomes really important. Finally, catastrophic risk, and this is becoming more and more prevalent. This is where we have to really bring together. I think my mic's falling off, sorry. If you can't hear me, I'll shout. Where we have to bring together the collective intelligence of all of the assets within our society, corporates, government, citizens, across climate, infrastructure and health risks, to really unlock the potential to keep people safe and economies running faster around the world. And I'm delighted to hand over to Dominic Jones now, who's our Senior Vice President in Everbridge for all things partnership, innovation and futures. So with that, I'll pass over to Dom. Thank you.
Thanks, Val. Thank you, everybody. And it's my privilege to be here today. I specialize in building ecosystems and partnerships. And of course, when we look at public safety and the threat, the existential threat that's presented by climate change. There's really no more pressing problem than that to really apply ourselves to. So I'm going to talk a little bit outside of the technology today about two things that we have been focused on. And the first is really dealing with those catastrophic risks that we've talked about. So we know that money invested in emergency response has a really powerful downstream impact on recovery from an event. In fact, the ratios are pretty incredible. There's quite a big spread. It's about, for every €1, dollar, or pound that's invested up front, it's between $100 or pounds or euros saved, or 1,000, dependent on the result. And so, of course, that's a pretty good return. And so how would you then think about getting more capital into an emergency response so that you could actually enhance it and make it work better? And of course, your mind would, of course, come to insurance. Insurance seems like a really good idea, but traditional insurance policies, of course, don't really allow you to do that. They, unfortunately, require examination of damage, loss adjustment, and then payout. There is another option, and this is something that really encourage you to look at, and that's parametric insurance. So parametric insurance is a policy that is written that has a trigger. And they're incredibly flexible. They can be adopted to support flood water height. They can be wave height. They can also be volcano ash cloud density. If that trigger is then activated because that threshold is reached, then the policy immediately pays out. And in fact, we can actually build workflow into the public alerting and public safety system to be able to inform the insurer that payment is required. We can actually then help push that capital actually out to the areas that are needed, to the various different agencies, and of course then deploy that. So that could be more helicopters, that could be more sandbags, that could be, of course, more aircraft to support a fire. And we've been working actually with our partner in this space, Howden, in fact, who have joined us here at this conference, who have been doing some really interesting work on this, specifically with the Danish Red Cross, which is kind of a pioneering policy. So Howden, together with the Danish Red Cross, have put together a policy that looks at the top 10 volcanoes in the world, not by the most active volcanoes, but by those that would create the most societal devastation should they erupt. And this policy is based on ash cloud density, based on that eruption. And if that threshold is reached, then that policy pays out, and aid can be delivered to those groups immediately. So, encourage you to come and talk to us about that, or get a little bit more information on that as we go forward. So the second area that I wanted to talk about today, in fact, is proactive use of public warning systems and public alerting systems for health. And the second area, really, of climate change that is a big problem for us to really consider is health. And one of the major impacts of climate change and climate adaptation that we need to consider is really the idea of being able to work with the air quality and the reduction in air quality. So obviously, as temperatures increase, that's going to be more fires, that's going to be more dust storms, and that, of course, is then going to impact the population and the health of the population, particularly those that are, of course, suffering from respiratory disease. And respiratory disease is very common in the most vulnerable areas of our society. It's not those that have of course are eating healthily and are living well, and so it's typically low income and minorities that really suffer from this. So we saw this, by the way, being deployed during COVID. A number of you in the room, I'm sure, use your public alerting systems to be able to enforce COVID protocols, or use the same system to actually warn of outbreaks or new changes in legislation. Similarly, we've been working with a leader in the space of detecting the air quality, a data source actually measuring to a very granular detail air quality on a global basis, and a leading pharmaceutical company to hook this into a public alerting system. So as air quality reaches a certain trigger point, if you're opted into this service, you can then receive an alert telling you that actually air quality is going to be bad and that you need to take some steps. And that may be not going outside. That could, of course, be also that you should wear a mask or some other preventative measure. And in fact, not only are we able to alert the population, but we can also then use the same method to alert the hospitals and the public safety answering points that they should expect more calls, and the hospitals that they should expect more patients with respiratory problems, and in fact, even go further down the supply chain to the medical suppliers. So is there enough oxygen available? And these types of use cases where you're actually using this system that is actually really well designed for mass alerting to be able to help drive a proactive approach, particularly in healthcare, I think is really the future of how we're going to drive climate adaptation and how we're going to be successful in combating these things. So with that, Val, I'm going to hand over to you to finish up.
Thanks, Dominic. So it's really clear. The future belongs to the resilient society. That resilient society is shaped by the government, by the emergency services, by the citizens, by the businesses. We can all play a very active leadership part in that. We're only constrained by our imagination. The technology can do most anything. And we're very excited about some of the things we're developing and thinking about, but we're even more excited to understand the things that you're wrestling with and would like to try and solve. So with that, we'd like to invite you to come and have a drink, because we celebrate our 20th birthday today or this year within Everbridge across our public warning and public safety businesses. We'd love to hear your ideas about what the future should be for public safety, public alerting and public warning. And we're very proud that as Everbridge, we already protect more than half of Europe, and we look forward to protecting the rest in due course. So thank you very much, and we're happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you for this nice presentation, and we need to be proactive. Is there any question within the floor? Short or one or two questions? No question? So we can go in the sky before the coffee break? Laurent? Thank you again.
Thank you, Johnny. So now we are going to lift off for the stars with Galileo. Galileo will offer soon a new service for public warning. I am Laurent Arzel. I'm a space engineer. I'm working for Telespatio France and as a project leader. And I would like to start with a few words about what I've seen this morning with the presenters. And as usual with EENA conference, I'm very interested. And it's clear we are dealing with serious things here. It's disasters, there are victims, casualties. But still, I will try to bring a bit of my natural joy into this, and but with humility. Thank you. And what I want to do is in the end, is to convince you that Galileo, it's your Galileo, it's European, and it's for you, and that I want to convince you that it's good for you. Alors. Okay, just well, starting with myself. So I'm a space engineer. So by definition, I'm a geek. I'm a weirdo. So I'm passionate about sliding sports. And recently, I started to learn skateboards. And what had to happen finally happened. I ended up with a broken leg 4 months ago. It's still an ongoing process. And yeah, obviously I've been rescued. And yeah, I think it's my best opportunity to thank not these guys, but the community. So thank you guys. It went perfectly well. It's in particular the morphine injection. That was the best part. Yeah, and also, well, a few years ago, I worked with EENA and some of you to deploy the EML in several member states, including France. And so, in the end, I used it. Few words about my company. So we are Telespazio France. We are a Franco-Italian company. We are specialized in satellite system and services. We cover all the space domains, and my team is working in the navigation department with an expertise in public safety topics, and in particular, the 112 color location, of course. Okay. So thanks to Mathieu, you already know everything about Galileo, but I will insist a bit. So we are going to have soon the Galileo Emergency Warning Service. So it's going to be a European space-based service targeted to be operational in 2024. So it's almost tomorrow. And the idea is to use Galileo as a channel for public warning. And well, I will be very pedagogical with my explanation, starting with simple things. So Galileo is a constellation, meaning that it's made of, now it's currently 24 satellites orbiting the Earth, evenly distributed around the planet, and there will be more to come. But now it means that that's an example, that's not a real picture, but that's a real configuration that I took at my place last weekend. And at that time, I had 7 Galileo satellites in view, meaning that I had 7 satellites broadcasting signals and reaching me. And at the other side, seen from the satellite, that's how looks the Earth. So they are far away, so they can see the Earth like this, meaning that one satellite can broadcast a signal on this almost all this area, meaning a big portion of the planet. So it's a basic thing, but Galileo is global. That means that we have access to anyone globally, anytime, with Galileo. Now, seen from the device, seen from the citizens, so it's a screenshot of my smartphone again this weekend. And maybe you can notice that I was in a flight mode, meaning that there were no Wi-Fi, no 4G, no connection, and still I got a location. Well, in this case, I had even a pretty good accuracy. But what that means, and it's not a surprise, it's normal, my smartphone is able to receive and process the Galileo signals without network, without telecommunication. No surprise for a navigation system, but it's a very important feature to understand why Galileo is good for warning the public. Okay, now a very simplified high-level concept. Well, it's pretty classical for public warning, but everything starts with an event which is detected by an entity, which in turn triggers a request towards the Galileo infrastructure to broadcast warning message to population. And the message will be notified to citizens who are in a target area and not the others. And what that means, that first it's a broadcast system, so one signal is enough to warn as many users as we want. It's one too many, not one a point-to-point system. And also it's the warning are geo-targeting, meaning that we can choose who we want to warn on geographical criteria, of course. Okay, just a little glimpse into the technical core detail. That's an example of the Galileo emergency warning message. So it could be like this. It will be probably a bit different. But yeah, it's approximately 120 bits, so it's small. But we are able to encode all the necessary information. And the concept is that we start with clear warning message, with clear information. We transform that into a code. The code is transmitted through Galileo, through satellites. And when received in the smartphone, it's transformed back into the clear information and made available to the user. And maybe you have noticed there is a fair part of the message which is for the target area, and that allows us to have a geo-targeted system. Yeah, and now you can understand that it's the main limitation of the system. We have a limited bandwidth, we have a limited space in the Galileo signal to transmit information, so we can only send predefined information. But if you think about it, 120 bits, it's a 1, well, I made the calculation for you, but it's a 1 followed by 36 0 different possible codes, so that's a lot. Okay, so everything started 5 years ago with a European project called GRAL. We were part of it. We ended the project with a field demonstration using satellites that was across Europe, but also in Australia. Then, maybe not, it played a role into the Europe decision to make it an official service. So it's in the European Union Space Program as per regulation. And now we're starting a new project called Stellar. We kicked off yesterday, by the way, here at the conference. And we're doing this with our partners, Thales Alenia Space, EENA, F24, and CNES. And we will have field demonstration in Europe with involving authorities, so it's going to be next year. And all that for supporting the adoption of the service, as well as preparing the entry into operation. Targeted, again, in 2024. Yeah. So I think now you can agree that you can understand that it's not, Galileo will not compete with the other public warning systems. Galileo, it's just a summary for you. It's going to be a European public service. European meaning that it's going to be the same service for all the European member states with a global coverage. It's very powerful. Also, it's satellite-based, meaning no ground destruction could affect the service. It works without nothing, just the device, just the smartphone. No need for telecommunication network. I speed up. Yes, it's a broadcast system, and it's geo-targeted, but we have only predefined information. So it's complementary, first because we are just adding a new warning channel, and well, it has been repeated several times, but it's good for increasing the chance to reach the citizens, but also it gives, I'm not an expert, I'm just repeating. It gives more trust to the instruction if it's received from different channels. That's, I understand. And also, Galileo has some key differentiator. It's global. It's a broadcast system. So with one signal, we could, if we want, warn the whole planet. And it's very likely, again, it's my advised opinion, but it's very likely that it's going to be the last channel to survive during a crisis where there are ground destruction like floods or wildfire, earthquake, whatever. So, did I succeed? Are you convinced? If not, If not, you have questions, and I will continue to convince you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we have just time for one or two short questions, please. It doesn't matter, there's a coffee break. So I have also a question, but I propose you to discuss just after. So just a few information. So now you have a networking in the exhibition area. At 4:20, you have a track, a research corner in partnership with ISCRAM. And in this room at 18, we have the 112 Awards ceremony. So thanks you for your attention, and we can go for the discussion and the coffee. Thank you.